476,000. This is the number of people in the United States who contract Lyme disease from a tick bite every year. Sometimes a bright red bullseye rash develops around the site of the bite. Sometimes there are no visible signs at all. No visible signs until symptoms appear, ranging from a fever or brain fog to chronic fatigue or joint pain. Sometimes these symptoms get worse and worse, even to the point of death. That's why Lyme disease is so hard to diagnose. Symptoms can appear as almost anything, and by the time a person is properly diagnosed, Lyme disease may have forever changed that person's life. Unfortunately, Lyme disease symptoms are very similar to the symptoms of long COVID, so more people are experiencing the symptoms of chronic illness today than ever before. But most healthy people have never felt the talons of chronic illness grip them. How I describe chronic illness to traditionally healthy people is this. Imagine the last time you had the flu, or were super sick and had limited energy. Maybe you couldn't get out of bed for a couple days, so you took off work to rest and heal. That's what it's like having a chronic illness every day. But you never get to the healthy healing part. You just always feel sick, but you have to keep living life like nothing is wrong. Before I tell you about my personal Lyme disease journey, let's go back in time before I had Lyme. I'm 10 years old and I've just founded a nonprofit. I didn't set out to start a nonprofit. I just wanted to help animals and raise money for them. I started making washcloths and beaded bracelets that I sold at a local grower's market and raised $100 that first summer. It grew from there into a nonprofit called Autumn Leaf Fundraisers that has raised over $100,000 for local nonprofits. And not only was my nonprofit thriving, I was also doing well in school, scoring into college level math in 8th grade on standardized tests. I wanted to be a veterinarian. I also wanted to go to Cornell, and I thought nothing could stop me. But when I was 14, my life completely changed, and my dreams of the future became very unclear. On June 10th, 2012, I got sick with a fever that completely wiped me of energy, and I never fully recovered. I started finding these small spots all over my body that started the size of a pea and some grew the size of a softball. I was tested for Lyme disease and I was positive. Can you imagine? All it took was one tiny tick to completely destroy the life trajectory I had set for myself. Little did I know that this tick had wiped the slate clean. So I would have to start over with new life dreams. But spoiler alert, I think that in being forced to rebuild my life, I made it better than I ever could have imagined. But there was a lot I had to go through first. Over the next 5 years, I experienced every symptom in the book, from debilitating fatigue, where I had between 0 to 4 hours of productive energy a day, to brain fog, where I couldn't tell my mom what I had just spent 30 minutes trying to memorize off one page of my textbook. This is also why I'm having to read my talk instead of memorizing it, because my brain fog is so terrible that memorization is next to impossible for me. I started having symptoms of insomnia, uncontrollable skin itchiness, nausea, irritable bowel syndrome, adult acne, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and the list goes on. One day, I was even taken to the emergency room when I experienced mysterious numbness on the right side of my body, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. During this time, I collected 27 different diagnoses, traveling every month, hours to appointments. At one point, I had a PICC line surgically inserted into my arm that intravenously pumped medication directly into my heart. Unfortunately, I reacted to the cleaning products and the bandaging, so for a month and a half, it looked like I had a chemical burn on my arm. For 2 years, I took a medication that unknowingly gave me severe depression and suicidal thoughts. At one point, I was taking over 50 pills a day that was comparable to putting my body through chemo treatment. Yet nothing seemed to take my symptoms away. I share all of this because the trauma and pain of having a health crisis so young forced me to work out techniques to not just survive, but figure out how to thrive as well. What I ended up doing was taking these lessons of pain and turning them into success through mindset changes. I'm going to use the acronym PAIN today to share how we can all use pain for triumph in everyday life. The first letter is P, which stands for post-traumatic growth, transformation through trauma, which happened in my journey. Based on UNC Charlotte's post-traumatic growth research group, there are 5 general areas where post-traumatic growth tends to occur. The first area of post-traumatic growth is that new opportunities have emerged that weren't there before the challenge. Since I had limited energy, I developed hyper focus and a dedicated work ethic to focus only on projects that brought me immense purpose. I was forced to choose which people, projects, and activities were important to me and prioritize those above all else. I had to grow up quickly and was thrown into adulthood early, so I became self-aware much faster than most of my peers. The second area of post-traumatic growth is changes in relationships with others, where you develop a closer relationship or feel a closer connection to others who have suffered. During this time, my illness helped me discover my love for writing. I wrote poems, flash fiction, and short stories about my experiences and emotions. As Anne Frank once said, paper is more patient than people. I wrote because a lot of my friends didn't understand what I was going through, but I connected with others at poetry readings where people resonated with my words of pain and purpose. The third area of post-traumatic growth is an increased confidence in one's own strength. I realized that even though I have a disability, I still feel like I can do whatever I set my mind to. Ever since I started my nonprofit when I was 10, I have believed that I can positively change the world and that everyone has this ability. That strong belief in positive power has helped me persevere despite challenges. The fourth area of post-traumatic growth is a greater appreciation for life. For me, this was after I had had suicidal ideations from a med side effect. Once you've considered if life is worth living or not, when you choose to stay, that makes life all the sweeter. You appreciate the good days all the more because there have been so many bad days. I now appreciate the beauty of balance. And finally, the fifth area of post-traumatic growth is a deepening or significant change in one's belief system, spiritually or religiously. For me, I started to believe in the power of the universe, knowing what I need at the right time. And while I don't believe that everything happens for a reason, I do now believe that you can find a reason for everything that happens. This means that an event that caused us pain can be turned into something positive that has meaning if you choose. Post-traumatic growth has been the silver lining for me. I believe that I grew in all these areas of post-traumatic growth, which is quite a gift to experience, and I am grateful for the growth that has come from it. Next, A in pain stands for Amor Fati. One of the most powerful tools I've used in my life is studying the Stoic philosophy. I feel like Stoicism was built for those with chronic illnesses, but I only heard about it 3 years ago, long after I got sick. Amor Fati, a love of fate, is my favorite Stoic idea, where you embrace everything that happens to you. Everything is fuel to your life, good or bad. In your eyes, it is all the same. Every single thing that happens is pushing you along on your journey, taking you exactly in the direction you want to go. This is a really hard concept to accept, but once you can see all events as neutral and as part of the story you're writing, the happier you will be. Now, the I in pain stands for instant versus delayed gratification. A huge lesson I learned from having a chronic illness is the difference between the two. At first, I fell into the trap of wanting only instant gratification. I wanted my health challenge to be solved immediately. But there was no magic pill in the 50+ pills I had been taking daily to help my symptoms. And I had to look at the long game and what choices I can make now that will help my health later on. At one point, I was so desperate for instant gratification that I became addicted to sugary food to the point of binging and gaining weight. Eating was a moment of instant gratification and control in a day where my health was so unpredictable. And I craved that rush of control every day. When I realized how bad my addiction was becoming, I turned my focus instead to the habits I controlled that could help me in the long term. I was doing things that I knew I wouldn't see the results from until weeks or months later. This is delayed gratification, and it's doing things for your future self. And finally, the N in pain stands for new mindset, which for me was cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset. I challenged myself to view obstacles not as roadblocks preventing me from achieving something, but as opportunities to grow. With an entrepreneurial mindset, I learned 3 important lessons. 1, I learned to take ownership of my life and accept responsibility for outcomes by embracing whatever happened. I knew that I was doing everything I could to work towards achieving my goals. And if an obstacle appeared, it was due to fate, not lack of trying on my part. 2, I learned that in order to move my passions and projects forward, I needed to take continuous action on my ideas. Michelle Wax, an inspirational female entrepreneur, shared the RAWS concept with me, and is now a constant tool in my life. RAWS stands for Reticular Activating System, which is a pattern recognition part of your brain that can connect important information. For example, when you hear a new word one day, suddenly it feels like you're hearing that new word everywhere. The RAWS is a filter to let important information through, and you can train your brain to recognize things that matter to you. And 3, I learned that resilience is also core to an entrepreneurial mindset. I realized that I have to practice and choose resilience. It doesn't just happen passively. I tried to focus on the entrepreneurial key that anytime something bad happens, I could look at it as training to be better and flexing my resilience muscle. I realized I could grow stronger in this way because I choose to. Today, I'm still not a normal, healthy person for my age. I'm technically disabled and cannot work a traditional 9-to-5 job, which is why entrepreneurship is the path I've chosen so I can control my own schedule. I want to end on the idea that the obstacle is the way. Ryan Holiday, a modern-day Stoic philosopher and a huge inspiration of mine, helps to translate the ancient Stoics into lessons that we can use in everyday life. In one of his podcasts, The Daily Stoic, he talks about an old Zen story that says, never forget that inside every obstacle is a chance to improve your condition. I love this idea because with my chronic illness, more times than I can count, I've had a challenge thrown my way, and it would cause a roadblock for me. The idea is that the new direction you're heading from a roadblock pivot is actually the direction you're meant to go. It's an opportunity, not an obstacle. After worrying I wouldn't even be able to get into college with my Lyme disease, I have a 4.0 grade point average after 4 years. I was on the founding team of a service club my freshman year as the assistant director and led it as the executive director my sophomore year. Since coming to UD, I've continued overseeing my nonprofit, Autumn Leaf Fundraisers. I was one of the founders of another nonprofit that focuses on Native American food insecurity called Native Nourishment. And I also started my dream company, a social venture called Upcycle Design. So far, I have a team of 14 people and have won more than $40,000 in funding to pursue my idea of becoming the #1 company for upcycled products in America. I also just completed 4 years of a nationally recognized leadership program. I'm pursuing my passion for mentorship and have mentored over 150 youth from all over the world, even starting my own mentoring program. I also have a YouTube channel that I call my Video Scrapbook, where I vlog my journey as a college social entrepreneur with health challenges. I wanted to empower others to pursue their dreams like YouTubers Lily Singh and Megan Batoon had done for me. I believe that challenges are gifts, but they are only gifts if you make them gifts. The challenge doesn't just turn into a gift if you just lay down on the couch and feel sorry for yourself every day. You need to rise to the challenge instead of giving up. You're not a victim. You're stronger because of this, but only if you take steps to become stronger. I also believe that people don't know their full potential until they're tested. They don't know their full capability until their limits are reached and then stretched and expanded. I would rather have gone through everything I did and know my full capability than live my life in the dark without knowing what my superpowers are. And you can do this yourself, even if you aren't experiencing a health crisis like I did. You can push your own limits without any outside circumstance pushing them for you. In my case, I was challenged by the outside force of chronic illness, so I had more growing pains because it was forced growth. But the upside is that I grew faster than I otherwise would have, and in ways that I never thought I could. I'd like to end with a quote by Louisa May Alcott. Lovely weather so far. I don't know how long it will last, but I'm not afraid of storms, for I'm learning how to sail my ship. Let's take our lessons of pain today and learn how to sail our ships into tomorrow. Thank you.